Today we're going to talk about the coamings for the boat. Now you can see I've got a thin piece of plywood on here getting started making the pattern. Now the coamings will ultimately be made out of walnut like the other bright work on the boat. But in order to get this shape, we need to really make a pattern. So let's go over to the plans and see what the plans say the coaming should look like. The coaming for the boat is a vertical board that surrounds the cockpit. And what that board's function is that when the boat is heeling, that the water will not get into the cockpit very easily. So the way this coaming looks on the boat here is you can see here in the elevation view that this board right here that goes all the way back around the cockpit is the coaming board. And so when we look at it in plan, it is this board that goes all the way back to here. So the critical part that we need to look at is this angle that the coaming meets up here. So one angle we need is this angle here. So if I draw like a straight line from here over, is this angle right here. And when I put a protractor on there to measure it, it's 65 degrees. So that I know that when the coaming continues over here, that the total is going to be 130 degrees. So the other thing then is this angle right here, and at what angle that is. And when I measured it, it came out to be about 19 degrees. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to make this piece that fits on here out of some scrap 2x4 and get that established. Now I can locate it on the deck because it meets here at frame number 6, that it sits right on top of that. So one of the first things that I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of that frame 6 deck beam that goes across there so that I'll have something to fasten that jig down to. I had made this small drawing of what those angles need to be. So this is the center line of my deck, and then this is where my coaming comes in at that 130 degrees. So I'm going to take this and reestablish it on the deck of the boat. So now I've got one in here, and you can see I've got this little piece of cardboard which is about the thickness of my saw blade. So I'm going to put that on there and then set this piece next to it, get it lined up. And then screw it down to the deck. Well, I'm pretty happy with that fit. I had to take it off 2 or 3 times and scribe that line. I was cutting a straight line, and the very last one, because the deck has a little bit of a camber to it, I need to trim just a little bit off. So now that I've got that established, I'm going to put a pattern on the back side so that I can kind of get an idea of what the top and bottom edges of the coaming board need to be. Well, now that I've got this backboard on, I can see that one of the things that is a little more obvious from this side of the boat is that the board kind of rises, it looks like it rises up because the shear actually has a small dip in it this way. So in order to establish this top, I checked the plans for some of the dimensions, and I can see that it's 5 inches needs to be up here at the fore end of it. And here at frame 7, it needs to be about 4 inches. And then it needs to move down to where at the very end, it needs to be 3 inches. So I'm going to change the design just a little bit compared to what the plans have, and that is that the plans show this little dip here at the end. And I'm going to start with it at 3 inches at this point, and then let it gradually rise up to the 4 inches up here at frame 7. So in order to do that, I want to get it to match the shear here. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take a batten and I'm going to attach it here. And then attach it down here, and you can see how that batten just naturally sort of follows the line of the shear here. So I'm going to mark that out so that I know that that's the height of it, and then I'll establish the inside height. I'm going to establish the bottom side here by measuring up to the bottom side of the shear clamp and then marking that. And I'll do that at several places. And then I'll take a batten and draw a fair line to that. Well, I'm pretty happy with that fit. So I think we've got our pattern made for the fore end here. Now, the walnut that I have, the longest piece is 71 inches. And from the very peak here all the way back to the transom is a little over 13 feet. So there's no possible way that I can get this out of 2 boards. So I'm going to need to divide it into 3, and I'll put a scarf joint in there. So the important part is that this first one gets past this sort of critical bend here where we'll have to actually steam it. And from here back, it's really a gentle enough curve that those boards won't need to be steamed. So what I'm going to do is shorten this one up a little bit here so that those joints I don't have a little tiny piece on the end, that they're a little bit more equal looking pieces. So the next step is start processing some walnut. Once I got the shape of the piece made, I made a poly bag for it so that I could steam it. Now I'm using a steam bag mainly because it's not that much to do as opposed to getting a big steamer out. And also I'll leave it in the bag when I get it clamped into place here and then let it cool with the bag slit open. So we've got the wallpaper steamer all plugged in and going, and once we get some steam generated, then we will time it. Now the conventional wisdom is 1 inch of wood is 1 hour. So we're at a ½ an inch here, so that'd be a ½ hour. So we'll probably let it go till about 45 minutes or so just to make sure. So check back in 45 minutes. After I got the port side all steamed, I then did the same thing over on the starboard side. And so now I've taken all of the plastic off of it, and it sat for a couple of days to really dry out thoroughly. And what I've now done is I've added the other two boards here and got them sort of clamped in place about the height that I need. Now I'll need to trim off the top and the bottom once I get them all glued together. So what I'm going to do is to put in a scarf joint. So this scarf joint is going to be an 8-to-1 scarf, and 8-to-1 means that in 1 inch it scarfs over 8 inches. So since this is half-inch material, what I need to do is to establish about 4 inches. So what I've done here is I've made a couple of marks here and here that represent where that would be. I'm going to cut this piece off at this point, mainly to eliminate this knot that's right here. And then so the scarf will come from this point here over to this point. Basically like that. And then the other piece will come from here to here, and it'll scarf the same direction, like that. So we'll eliminate this material and eliminate this material to scarf those together. So now that we've got that determined, I need to get the scarfing jig down and start scarfing this first piece.
Stay tuned for a preview of the next episode of The Art of Boat Building.
Came out pretty good. As always, thanks for watching.